Welcome to the Tennis Podcast, live from Wimbledon on day 10 of the championships. I'm Catherine Whittaker, this is Matt Roberts, this is David Law. I don't know whether you remember this, but this is the sun, this is the sky, this is what summer can look like in Great Britain, and we have enjoyed it today.
And we are not calling this our wet weather position. This is it's so nice that tennis is still happening on the outside courts position, and we can no longer record overlooking court 18 because there's tennis happening and it would be too loud. What a turnaround in 24 hours.
Our position has had a rebrand. Tennis is still happening on court 18. In fact, they've just moved an extra match onto court number 18 because there's so much tennis still to be played, and there is miraculously no rain in the forecast for the next, I don't want to jinx this, but for the next few days actually we could be set fair, David, and we needed it. We needed it today.
Oh yes, we did. And to put it into perspective, we're supposed to wear this stuff because we're sponsored by the Wimbledon shop, but actually you're also wearing the caps because the sun's out and it's nice and bright and it keeps it out your eyes.
I couldn't put the cap on quickly enough today, David. I was like, the sun's out, I'm putting the cap on. No, it's absolutely brilliant. And everything we're wearing is available from the Wimbledon shop. Do head there either online or to the actual shop in court number one court, if you are coming here over the next few days. Lucky you if you are coming here over the next few days. If you're here live on YouTube, hello, please do hit that like and subscribe button if you're enjoying what you're watching. And do subscribe to the newsletter as well. Might as well say that at the top of the show while I've got your attention before the mass exodus to watch the build up to the football. Our target for today is to keep your attention for as long as possible. And I am watching the viewer numbers live. So I will know if you all leave us. I will understand, but I will also be hurt. But luckily, despite it being a 5-setter, Lorenzo Musetti and Taylor Fritz finishing just in time for us to get a full-length show in before kick-off tonight in England against the Netherlands. And actually a really entertaining match, would we say that?
Oh, absolutely. I loved watching it. There were some serious ups and downs for both players, but I watched all of it and 3 sets of it from the most incredible commentary position on the corner of the court, ground level, to get the full experience of Lorenzo Musetti, which I've never had before, and it's such a joy. It really is.
What has been your experience of Lorenzo Musetti before this? How did you feel about him coming into this match, and how has it changed?
I always thought of him as a fancy Dan with flourishing follow-throughs.
I'm going to have to stop you there, David. What is a fancy Dan?
Somebody who wants to hit shots for people to stand up and applaud and get excited about because they're so easy on the eye.
Style over substance.
Yes, and somebody who's got immense potential but actually is probably going to end up not fulfilling what we thought when he first came along. And that may well still be the case, but look, he's into a Grand Slam semi-final for a start, so we're already talking massive upgrade. But today I watched him package that potential. We so often talk about players with a rich array of shots who just can't decide which one to play when, and their mind drifts, and then they place ridiculous shots. And look, he does still play ridiculous shots. At times you're just pulling your hair out as to why he's changed what looks like a winning strategy. But Matt flagged up a few days ago his backhand slice and how he thought that could cause Taylor Fritz in particular some problems, but also about how well Musetti is utilising that shot. This is a guy who's put some real results together on grass. He's reached the Queen's final. Here he is on quarter-finals day. So he's done what he's supposed to do, really, if you're going to make serious progress. But today was another step up for me because he was a heavy underdog in this match in my eyes, and when Fritz won the most uneventful first set imaginable, 6-3, I really thought we're looking at straight sets. Musetti looked overwhelmed by the occasion. He didn't look like he was capable of playing his best tennis on this stage, and he proved that wrong, totally wrong. Second set was an absolute tug-of-war, tie-break. Third set is probably, with Alcaraz's fourth set yesterday, the best single set of tennis I've seen a male player play all tournament. He had every shot in the book. He was toying with Taylor Fritz. He was bringing him in on short slices and then lob volleying him and hitting passing shots and just absurdly relaxed looking strokes. It looked like he was holding the racket really lightly in his hand whilst Fritz was just sort of holding it like a shovel and trying to dig his way out of trouble. Third set, he was right in there with a chance. He saved a break point with again a sort of short backhand slice and a kind of passing shot paddled forehand volley winner. I mean, you know, these sorts of shots to hit when you break point down. Then he goes love 40 up, and you're thinking this is the closest thing you get to watching Federer, right, on this court. That's what it was reminiscent of in terms of imagination and execution. So he's right there, 2-1 up. He's got this incredible position to go and take this match over at love 40, and then he plays safe and cautious and invites Fritz to hit out, and Fritz just bludgeoned his way through, saving 4 break points, and again wins that full set, 2-all, and you're waiting for the Lorenzo Musetti capitulation. That's what I'm waiting for. And instead, he goes and wins 5 games in a row, reverting to what he'd done in that third set. And honestly, the way he slices and the ball skims over this net and then a flourishing backhand with topspin, different ball every time. Fritz, you could tell, just couldn't get any timing. I think his foot speed was slower after the 5 sets of the Zverev match, but he was just, I said at one point, Lorenzo Musetti has put Taylor Fritz's head in a blender because he couldn't think straight, and I thought it was a brilliant performance and a brave one too. It was brilliant to watch.
Another Wimbledon, another David high on an Italian.
I was really high on him. I mean, I don't really trust him, to be honest.
Still, even after that, because took some grit. That wasn't just flourishing tennis.
On the
that
day,
was grit.
I didn't trust him today, and he delivered, right? But do I trust him to come back out and put up a great account of himself against Novak Djokovic? I mean, look, you can play well and lose to Novak Djokovic, even if you're as good as Lorenzo Musetti. I just don't want him to not turn up.
And I think, look, I said this about Holger Rune. I said Holger Rune shows up against Novak Djokovic, and he didn't. But Musetti has shown up against Djokovic. You know, he's been 2 sets up on him at the French Open. He's beaten him, and he had that match just a month or so ago that ended in the early hours, and he was playing really well in that match. He brought out some of Novak Djokovic's best tennis. So I think there's very much a world where Musetti can play really well in Friday's semi-final and still lose because he's up against Novak Djokovic. Yeah. But I feel a little bit more confident that he will show up. And yeah, just as David said, it was an amazing display of using all the tools at his disposal in a really effective tactical manner, which he wasn't doing in the first set, and he had that terrible service game to lose serve. But then he managed to extend the rallies, and he was winning the longer rallies. He was neutralising Fritz's serve. I should think Fritz's serve kind of felt like nothing after he'd faced Pesci-Parikar's serve the other day. And that slice, it is a weapon, especially on the grass. It stays so low, and it gets Fritz caught in a sort of no man's land. He's like, do I come in off that? Do I stay back? Fritz isn't brilliant, I don't think, at generating his own pace. Like, he's got a great backhand. If you hit hard into it, he's gonna hit it back and hit it flat and use your pace against you. But it was a perfect tactic against Fritz, and then it sets up, you know, that slice sets up Musetti to use the full repertoire of shots that he has. And yeah, like, he absolutely got very tentative on those break points in the 4th set. But then to have lost that 4th set, I was thinking, okay, Fritz is probably the favourite now heading into the 5th. But Musetti had worked out tactically what to do, and he stayed strong mentally to just keep executing those tactics, and he absolutely flew out into the lead, and it's an incredibly impressive win. The flip side is Taylor Fritz, like, a set up against Lorenzo Musetti, in a 5th set against Lorenzo Musetti. Okay, all that we've just said about Musetti is true, but it's not Djokovic and Nadal like it has been in his previous Grand Slam quarterfinals.
He won't get a better chance.
This was his chance.
You've got to be winning this
You'd be
one.
surprised if he gets a better chance to reach a Grand Slam semi-final.
And
That is the fact.
And it felt like he was feeling that. As soon as it started to go against him, it felt like he was panicking. There was a look of sort of stress on his face, and I think he was acutely aware of the situation he was in there, and what a big opportunity this was.
This is scar tissue for Taylor Fritz.
I'd have thought so. I mean, I understand that it can happen, but your windows are so small. Your opportunities to reach a first Grand Slam semi-final. This was Jessica Pegula-like in that way. Finally, you've got what you want. I mean, and in the men's game, it's even more pronounced because you're so often up against this small handful of players who are just better than Taylor Fritz. I was saying it about Tommy Paul last night. But really, Lorenzo Musetti shouldn't be better than him. Not based on history. Fritz beat him in straight sets here 2 years ago. His ranking's higher. He's the one who's reached the multiple Grand Slam quarterfinals. Musetti's never done it before. Musetti's I know he's young. He's not been around that long, but he's a serial sort of disappointment, to be honest with you. He is, because he just doesn't turn up sometimes when you really think maybe he will.
I think you expect a lot from him because it looks so stylish, right? We are all guilty of being seduced by stylish players. I mean, how seduced was I by Denis Shapovalov?
Yeah.
When I first saw him.
Yeah,
right?
But this is a really gritty win in the end, I think he has shown something today that there's more to him than the flourishes, and because you don't win a match like that unless you've got heart and mental strength and fitness. He really did a great job today.
And I do think we are in a situation where genuinely grass might be his best surface, and also
because of the slice, I think.
Because of the slice, but also like relative to other players, his game works on it more than a lot of other players' games do, and that's a shame because the window on grass is so small. Like if you were going to pick a surface to have as your best,
it's the worst one.
It wouldn't be grass right now. 40, 50 years ago it would have been, but not now.
Yeah, Medvedev being a hard court specialist made good life choices.
Also, Pat Cash was in the commentary box with me, and he said halfway through the sort of last parts of the second set, he said he's reading everything that Fritz is going to do.
And that's what he was doing against Pesci Perriard as well, which was so impressive. He figured him out. He'd gathered some data from their last meeting in Stuttgart a few weeks ago, and you could see him.
Yeah.
Blocking it all.
His imagination, he is so far ahead of the opponent in terms of, and I think Novak Djokovic does this as well. It's in a different way. It might be less flowery, but every shot has got an intent for maybe one that's 3 shots down the line in the rally. It's not just here's a ball, I'm going to try and leather it for a winner. There's a thought process about how I end up winning this point, and when Musetti thinks clearly, and he doesn't always, I don't think, when he's free. In that third set, he just looked like he was knocking around with his mates. And here he is on a Grand Slam quarter-final stage, and he's just toying with a top player. It was incredible to watch.
I think I might need to add the best is yet to come to my tattoo shopping list. The shush down my finger, and then the best is yet to come somewhere about my person, because he's manifested up a storm there as Lorenzo Musetti, hasn't he? For now, anyway.
Yeah, and beating Novak Djokovic in the semi-finals would be even better. So it fits. And look, the slice backhand will be effective against Djokovic as well. I think you've got to give Djokovic a change of rhythm and try and get him out of his comfort zone. And the slice can do that. Look. Federer had an amazing slice backhand, and it helped him against Novak Djokovic. But you do need a lot more than that. Yeah. And Federer had a lot more than Musetti has, and he still couldn't beat him here over 5 sets very often. So
a lot of bending though, which tests
test
that
out the knee. Yeah, for sure.
I think the other thing is it saves energy for Musetti, because he and this is what Dimitrov I think has discovered in later life. You're diffusing. Somebody smacks a ball at you hard, he's just floats it back, and there's minimal energy expended.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
And that kind of slow, fast combination, I think, is very effective, particularly on grass. It's still Novak Djokovic. There's no question I'm expecting Djokovic to win, but I am interested. I'm a lot more intrigued by this match than I would have been about Fritz against Djokovic.
Yeah, I'd already written in Fritz's head-to-head against Djokovic with a very heavy heart into the agenda as a discussion point. And look, I feel the same. I feel relieved that we're not seeing Fritz Djokovic take 10, because a 9-0 head-to-head is not. It's just not. It's not a great prospect, is it? We would have bigged it up.
Yeah,
we would have done our best.
Because you just never know.
You just never know.
But you do kind of know.
You kind of do know, absolutely. It's more Monfils Djokovic, Gasquet Nadal. Just staying with Taylor Fritz for a moment. I don't want to be too hard on the guy. He's been a top 10 player. He's qualified for the ATP finals. He's made several Grand Slam quarterfinals now, but we're kind of judging him by the standards he sets himself, right? Like he will be gutted with this. He wants more. He thinks he should be achieving more, and it made me think of the original, the OG class of NextGen. 2017 it was, David. Tsitsipas, Zverev, Fritz, Rublev, Coric, Chung, Tiafoe, Medvedev as well. Now Medvedev has won a slam, been world number one, consistently been at the very top of the game. But if we'd all been told in 2017 or 2018 that this lot would have one slam between them midway through 2024, we would not have believed that, would we? Because the dialogue around this lot 2018 was, well, we all bigged up the Dimitrov team Raonic generation, didn't we? And look what's come of them. These are the real deals. These are really the ones that are going to take over from the big three. And okay, yes, Medvedev is a caveat, and Tsitsipas and Zverev have each reached Grand Slam finals, but still, we would all be astounded with the paltry amount that they've achieved.
I think the thing I'd probably be the most surprised about is that the big three just stuck around as long as they did and didn't allow these guys a look.
And is that the story, though?
Well, I think there's three factors. I think there's Novak Djokovic is still here, and he won 3 slams last year.
But he's still here in Alcaraz and Sinner have been winning slams.
That's
with
the
him
other
still
factor.
Here.
I think Alcaraz in particular has had a faster rise than anyone would have foreseen in 2017, 2018. Some of us knew about Carlos Alcaraz in 2017, but
the thing is, he's got
not everyone.
He's got Federer, Nadal, Djokovic top level.
Yeah.
And
but
these guys
look, I know.
But then I do think the third factor...
And I know that Alcaraz is totally exceptional in terms of his gifts, but...
The third factor is these guys don't quite have the level, frankly, that we probably thought they would have.
And they accrued scar tissue at the crucial moments of their careers, I think, when they had youth and exuberance on their side, and now they don't have that newness and freshness of youth. They've kind of accrued the scar tissue without gaining the confidence of actually doing it.
Yeah.
They don't have the benefit of the experience, but they do have the downsides of scar tissue.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, look, Tsitsipas has lost the Grand Slam final from 2 sets up. Zverev the same, and also from 2 sets to 1 up. They've been close. I think Rublev, Fritz, Tiafoe maybe just don't quite have that top level. But I think Tsitsipas, Zverev, it does feel like a big sort of baggage accumulation.
And I think, look, Zverev has separated himself from Tsitsipas.
He has
in the last year. I mean, he's playing the best tennis of his career overall. And so he will still think that actually I'm getting closer to the top guys.
He has, but in 2017, 2018, he was telling people he's a future number one.
Yeah.
He was.
Absolutely.
And nobody was saying, that's ludicrous,
I'm
Alexander.
still very
I'm
very much not convinced that Zverev ends up with any Grand Slam title.
Do you think any of those that I've listed do? Tsitsipas, Zverev, Fritz, Rublev, Coric, Chung, I know, has had horrendous injuries, and I know that there are other factors here.
Apart from Medvedev and Zverev, they're the only ones I think that could conceivably win a Grand Slam from here, of those people.
But you think Zverev probably won't?
I just feel like the assumption is that he's got so close and he's had these opportunities and therefore he'll end up taking the next one. Well, I just think there's still a couple of guys there in Sinner and Alcaraz that are better than him. And if one doesn't get him, the other probably will. And I also think Medvedev usually will beat him too. Now, Djokovic, how long has he got left? Again, if he plays him, he'll probably win. And then there's going to be other people that will come up.
Do you think they were all waiting for the big three to go?
Of course.
Do you think there was too much kind of, my time will definitely come?
I just
rather than, I don't care when they go.
I don't think they could have had any say in it, really, because these guys are too good for them. You know, I don't think their attitude was a problem as such. I think
Andy Murray didn't accept that they were too good for him.
Yeah, but he's better than them.
He made himself better than them.
I genuinely think but he's better than them strokes-wise, he's better than them mentally, he's better than them heart and fitness and everything.
But that's what I mean. The heart and the fitness and all of that all comes from a refusal to accept that they're just better than me.
I just don't think they've got that in them. I think that
Right.
they are lower-level tennis players, fundamentally. And there's a reason Andy Murray was part of the Big Four as it was. These guys, they wouldn't have done that. If they were in that era, at that time, they wouldn't be anywhere near these four. I don't think.
Tough day for Taylor Fritz. Hope he's not watching. He's definitely not watching. He's probably going through the awful process of sort of having to wee on demand after losing in a Grand Slam for doping purposes.
Needs one of these.
I am critical of him because he came up short today, but I also feel for him because he is trying all the time, and when you're accruing that mental baggage and disappointment, it only gets harder.
That's it. Like, generally, I do think Fritz is pretty much maximising.
I agree.
Like, you know, he's been American #1. He's been in the top 10. He's okay. Like today, there's definitely a sense of missed opportunity for sure. But like, I don't look at Fritz underperforming. Like with his game, I think he's getting a lot. I think he's getting a lot out of it, and you know, maybe that's not always been the case for his career. Like, you know, he was part of that original NextGen 2017, 2018. It did take him a little while to get to where he is now. It took him longer, for example, than Zverev and than Tsitsipas. But you know, I think he's actually doing pretty well. I think this is a missed opportunity for sure, and tells you something about him. But it doesn't feel to me like he's massively underperforming with his career.
Today, though.
Well, as I said, today's a missed opportunity, but
I just think that's such a big opportunity missed, though, that actually he is underperforming. Because that's the one people are going to remember if he doesn't break through.
It's the one he'll remember as well.
Yeah, it's like I said the other day, though, like suddenly thrust into a new situation where you're the favourite. That was always going to be a tough mental battle for him today. And look, I think tennis-wise, I think Musetti's got more in his game than Fritz has. He's got a game that actually can flourish on this surface. Like Fritz is kind of, he hits a very reliable ball. It's very consistent, but it's not got anywhere close to the variety that Musetti's got.
It ended up looking like a craftsman against a ball basher,
right? Didn't
it?
And you know, like, sure, it was a big opportunity, but I don't think it massively changes how I feel about Taylor Fritz. Like,
what do you think?
I think today was an enormous missed opportunity. I agree. I don't think, in Fritz's case, I don't think he quite has it at the top level, but I also do think this scar tissue is an enormous factor for these guys. Enormous. And I do think there was a slight entitlement, perhaps a very understandable entitlement and complacency that came with being that OG NextGen class.
It is tough when you're
because
constantly
they were
being
just
told.
anointed, weren't they?
You're constantly.
They were anointed the
in
next
America
ones.
too, you know, it's even more pronounced there, isn't it? Because
You
they
know,
need somebody that they're going to pick up.
Absolutely. And look, nobody could have predicted, I don't think, the extent of the longevity of the big three. But still, I do think they're guilty of having felt like, well, we'll just wait here until they go.
That's kind of the irony of like the marketing campaign. Like, there actually wasn't really a window like there was in 2001-2, like, because
the big Max Mirny new balls please
right?
campaign,
because Djokovic is still going, and Alcaraz has beaten him in a Wimbledon final. Alcaraz is here right now while Djokovic is here. Like, they were trying to make something happen really with that next gen, and I totally understand why it happened, and I think, you know, to some degree it was successful. I think the next gen finals generally has been quite a good concept, but there just hasn't been that real window where there's been a huge chance for these players to get in there ahead of Djokovic and Nadal, particularly those two. Federer kind of stopped being a force at the end of 2019, like those pandemic-y years.
But a lot of these players
really a factor.
Broke through with wins over those big three and big four. Like, we were talking about them as players that could contend with them and muscle in. Coric, Tsitsipas,
well,
Zverev.
Tsitsipas did it at a slam against Federer.
Right.
I'm not sure the others necessarily really did.
No, but we were still talking about them in those terms.
I think we were, which maybe was our fault.
Right.
Like, I think Tsitsipas was the one who I did think, well, he's beaten Federer at a slam. He's then backed it up. He was great the rest of that year. He won the ATP finals. He's probably the one that, for me, like, I think, because his game hasn't really progressed that much. You know, I don't think 2024 Tsitsipas necessarily beats 2019 Tsitsipas.
No, it feels like he's regressed.
Right, and whereas I think Fritz's game has improved. I think Fritz now beats Fritz of back then, and I think probably Zverev does as well. Like, so I don't know. There definitely wasn't as big a window as there seemed, but equally, I agree about the scar tissue and how now it does feel like these aren't the guys anymore. It's Alcaraz and Sinner, and Rune hopes Rune.
Feast.
Savage. Absolutely, that is as savage as my dad about Holger Rune. We got women's quarterfinals to talk about. Just quickly, we need to touch upon Alex de Minaur withdrawing from his scheduled quarterfinal with Novak Djokovic. This morning, coming to a press conference, just being utterly devastated. Anybody that heard the pod or watched us live a couple of nights ago perhaps won't have been tremendously surprised by this. I wasn't surprised by this, but I was devastated on his behalf. He said it's a torn cartilage in his hip. Mute now if you don't like sort of horrible medical stuff. He said, I felt a loud crack and a scan confirmed the injury. High risk of making it worse, he said. And it does seem like the Olympics is very much in doubt, and who knows beyond that. And he said, you know, this was the biggest match of my life and I'm devastated, and it's just, it sucks.
It's horrible. He said it happened on like the last 3 points of the match, and you know, he knew that the look in his eye was one of terror, really. He knew, I think, in that moment, and he did all the things that he kind of had to do with a match to potentially play, but you could tell from his body language, and it's gutting to miss out on this because, look, Novak Djokovic probably would have won, but Alex de Minaur's got a win against Novak Djokovic this year. He's playing the best tennis of his life. And, you know, so it's gutting to miss out on that opportunity. And if he misses the Olympics, we know how much he loves representing Australia.
He's got a tattoo.
He missed the last Olympics because he got COVID.
Oh.
You know, like, it's brutal. And he's just had a good result at the French Open. Like, it's not completely impossible that he could have contended for a medal there. And
really
now
tough.
It feels like he'd be doing well to even make it, and he probably needs a longer recovery period. It's absolutely brutal.
That look in his eye.
It was haunting at the time, and it's even more haunting knowing what we know now.
I can't stop thinking about it, you know, because it's so communicated, everything he was thinking and feeling, and we're just watching on TV and we knew.
Like, I think if he doesn't make that volley, like, do you remember the volley he made on match point was an incredible one? If he doesn't make that volley, he might not even have finished the match. Like, it would have been, okay, he was serving for it.
And David would have had Art of Feast to watch today.
Not sure that would have gone particularly well.
Oh, yeah, it's just absolutely brutal. Incidentally, sorry to use Alex de Minaur's misery as a promo opportunity, but a lot of people in the chat are now talking about injuries and withdrawals and retirements in this Wimbledon, and how it seems anecdotally like there's been more than ever before. That is what Matt's Stats is about tonight. So do subscribe to the newsletter if you want definitive fact and stats on that misery. What a promo.
I was going to say I'm excited, but that wouldn't be the right word, would it?
Let's talk about the women's quarterfinals that we saw today, and we've had a semi-final set up between Elena Rybakina, the champion here a couple of years ago, and Barbora Krejcikova. And we'll talk about their head-to-head a bit in a moment, because it's interesting. Krejcikova leads it 2-0, and both of their matches have been crackers, actually. Let's start off by talking about Rybakina, David. 6-3, 6-2 over Svitolina. Overpowered, overwhelmed.
Yeah.
How did you see the match?
Like that. This was a better version of Caroline Wozniacki trying to take on that player. And Caroline Wozniacki won one game the other day. And I commentated on that. I commentated on this. And actually, Svitolina broke in the first game of the match. And she sort of found a couple of shots to hurt Rybakina. Number 2.
It was just there, David. It would have been rude not to.
I can't drink at the moment, folks, so Catherine's got my beer. Very good of you.
Did Matthew just zoom in on that?
That would have been a good idea. Anyway, but so honestly, I mean, having said that, I thought Svitolina would win in 3, and it was probably more hope than anything. Not that I wanted Rybakina to lose. Just I love Svitolina. I hope the best for her, and I just wanted to see a really good scrap. And when she won that first game, I thought she's got exactly what she needs to dig in and make this tough for Rybakina. If Rybakina's anywhere short of kind of perfect, really, well, perfect Rybakina turned up after that. And the sound of the ball strike, it's totally different to what you see with Lorenzo Musetti, which I've been drooling about earlier. This is another kind of drool. This is just over the carrot snap that you always talk about. I don't think there is a more definitive carrot snap sound to a ground stroke than Elena Rybakina's on forehand
Agreed.
And backhand. And poor old Elena Svitolina, she was walking to her support team just saying, well, what do I do? I'm playing fine. What can I do about this? And the truth is, she couldn't do anything, because these were just arrows going off into the corners of the court, one after another. And Rybakina, she's going to win this tournament if she carries on playing the way she's playing.
Wow. Even in spite of that head-to-head with Krejcikova?
She's the best player. On the surface, she's the best player. I do think Krejcikova is playing really well. And listen, maybe she can reduce Rybakina's level somehow. But I just can't believe that Rybakina plays her best tennis and doesn't win this tournament.
Do we still have the question marks about Rybakina playing her best tennis? That's 5 matches now. How secure do we feel in Rybakina being Rybakina?
Well, she has got over the point where it's affected her previously. You know, this is her first Grand Slam semi-final since the Australian Open last year, where she reached the final, of course. So, you know, by now it has affected her in tournaments past, but Yeah, it's still, I'd say it's been in the forefront of my mind going into every match. It's now kind of in the back of my mind. I think we have to keep it there. We can't just ignore it altogether. But I agree with David. Like, this tournament is on Elena Rybakina's racket. I mean, it might have been from the very start, even when all the very best players were in. Like, because her level with her serve and her power and her just ability to dominate on return on this surface, I think, is an absolute nightmare for anyone if she's playing her best. But with all those players gone, she only served at 51% first serves in today, and yet was still pretty dominant against a player who's been playing very, very well. I do think Krejcikova causes more problems than Svitolina, but yeah, like, it's in the back of my mind. But right now, I think we've talked a lot about this women's draw being a bit chaotic and you don't quite know, but we've got two former Grand Slam champions facing off in the semis. We've got the finalist from the most recent Slam, and Donna Vekic, who is a surprise semi-finalist but isn't like out of nowhere, and that's kind of just what women's tennis can do. Like, it can feel random, but actually when you look at the stories, all these players have done a lot of stuff in the past.
It does all make sense.
They're all sort of dormant volcanoes, like, and suddenly they're just sort of erupting. That's kind of how I think of the WTA Tour. So many dormant volcanoes, and they can all erupt at any moment. And like, it's 12 slams in a row now, where at least one of Sabalenka, Swiatek, or Rybakina have been in the semis. Like, I don't think Big Three is a thing, really, but that's a Big Three-esque.
Look, if
statistic.
Barbora Krejcikova were here right now, she'd say Big Four.
Especially this weekend, as she hopes to win the title.
She hasn't come into press yet because she's been playing doubles, and in fact, she has just lost in the doubles. So the double is no longer on. Heck of a match by the looks of things. I watched a bit of it earlier. She's partnering Laura Siegmund at the moment. Lost to Gabby Dabrowski and Erin Routliffe 6-4 in the third.
That's interesting as an element, isn't it? That she's gone straight and played doubles before this match.
Well, she was playing doubles late last night, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Before her singles today. Dabrowski is my Luisa Stefani. I think she's good.
Yeah.
I really do. Like, whenever I watch her on a doubles court, I'm like, wow.
Luisa Stefani, if anybody's wondering what he's going on about, is somebody I picked out during the pandemic when I was desperate for tennis, and the first tournament back. And I watched her, and I messaged her, God, Luisa Stefani is some player. And I stand by every word of it. She was just such a great watch, and she is still a great watch. And I'm bang behind her. I'm right behind her.
Yeah. Yeah, she is some player, but it did feel like you could have been watching, me at the park, and you'd have texted the group in that moment and said, she's some player. Just so thrilled to have some tennis to watch. Krejcikova was awesome today. I am guilty of underestimating Barbora Krejcikova, beating Elena Ostapenko, who hasn't even been dropping games really, in straight sets, 6-4, 7-6, reaching her first Grand Slam semi-final since the French Open win of 2021, although she's been reaching quarterfinals since then, and she was a quarterfinalist in Australia this year. Like, she hasn't dropped off a cliff since winning that French Open, and yet this is the biggest thing she's done since then. It's always felt to me like her game makes sense on grass, and she proved it today. She was so good.
So good. All aspects of her game were working really well. Like, she served Ostapenko off the court in that first set, just so dominant behind her serve. And then, Ostapenko got herself going in that second set. I think took a 4-1 lead and was starting to hit those winners that she's been hitting all tournament. But there was such intensity about Krejcikova today. She was fist pumping. She was roaring at times. Like, Barbora Krejcikova, it was like a new side to her.
Matt said, oh my God, it's like Kyle Edmund at the Laver Cup. And I was not thrilled to be reminded of those scenes in that moment, David.
The body checking.
I've worked hard in therapy to put Kyle Edmund at the Laver Cup out of my mind.
Well, I think about it way too often. Like it was a different side, and she was awesome. And she was hitting such deep returns and pinning Ostapenko back, and her defense towards the end was absolutely phenomenal. And she just made Ostapenko hit more balls than she's had to hit all tournament. Like balls were coming back from Krejcikova
she had to do
that
running,
weren't coming
didn't
back.
she? And she was
right.
like, this isn't what I'm here for.
Yeah, and yet she's so precise with her own attacking game, Krejcikova. If she's got a ball to put away, she can really hit the spot that she wants to hit. And yeah, she was a thoroughly deserved winner. She was the better player today, and I think maybe her biggest achievement was actually getting a hug from Ostapenko at the end of a match after
warmest handshake she's ever done.
After an Ostapenko loss, like.
It looked like genuine warmth to me.
Yeah.
It was a big surprise.
Yeah, it was a big moment.
Yeah. In takes that have aged really well, news, cameraman Matthew last night decided to design his own backhand list and put Barbora Krejcikova on it.
Wasn't she a contender for yours?
Yeah, she has been a contender. Yeah, absolutely. Look, Matthew...
I say yours, I mean the.
Yeah, thank you. Matthew knows backhands. Matthew knows his stuff. He gets it. I'm fine with Matthew having a backhand list.
And you were actually fine with the contenders on it.
Yeah, I mean, ridiculous that Anisimova's not on it. That's really glaring, and we'll be having words. But yeah, it was a good list. Matthew gets it. Matthew gets backhands.
Monica Nicolescu on there. You're all right with that?
Yeah, because she's got a terrible forehand. She has to slice it, so she ends up relying on the backhand, and the backhand becomes like the protagonist of her game. That's what we're all about.
What are you saying about Anisimova's forehand?
It's not great.
It's wrong.
Well, look, it's good when she's in position, but she runs around her backhand far too much for my liking. Just hit that backhand.
Nicolescu does the sliced forehand, doesn't she?
Yeah.
The wind up.
Yeah. But Matthew, this is his favourite part of the pod. He's nodding along.
Look, David, I agree with you that Rybakina plays well. She wins the tournament. She's the best player. I felt that since she won Wimbledon. Like, every time I see Rybakina play, I'm like, oh, well, if you play well,
Brisbane final.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. And I even feel that against Iga Swiatek, quite honestly, because when she plays well, she does have her number. She's got that Iga Swiatek kryptonite. The caveat with her is her health issues and the times when she really, really just doesn't show up at all, and a blink of her Australian Open being the main trauma there. But Barbora Krejcikova, just to make the case for this not being a foregone conclusion, Barbora Krejcikova, number one, has a point to prove. She is a chip on the shoulder player.
Yeah.
This whole, it's not a big three, it's a big four thing. I know, I really feel for her with how much egg she got on her face for saying that, because she did not play well for quite a long period after saying it. But she has had big wins over those big players, particularly Swiatek and Rybakina, that not many other players have had.
Where have the wins against Rybakina come?
She beat...
Remember the Grampians Trophy, David?
Yes.
Yeah. It was... One of them was a bit COVID-y.
Okay.
The Grampians Trophy 2021. So, yeah. Depths of the pandemic.
Right.
The second one, though, was the Ostrava title 2022, when Krejcikova beat Swiatek in the final and had beaten Rybakina in the semi-finals. And I think it was around that time that Krejcikova said it's not a big three, it's a big four thing.
I think she said, I want to make it a big four. And actually, when I think about that, I think, well, good for you. You know, you've got that ambition in you. And unfortunately, she went on a really poor run. So, it backfired on her. And I do feel a bit guilty about that in a way, because she did get a lot of stick for it. But a couple of things. I said Rybakina wouldn't even make these semi-finals, so my credibility is in tatters. But that was based on thinking that she wasn't going to be fit enough. And actually, hearing a talk on 5 Live today, she did an interview with BBC Radio, and she just sounded more at ease. She said there was much more depth to her and length to her answers. She's got her sister here, and that seems to just work well for her. somebody who's not that into tennis really, but is living every moment in the box there. Going
she's a
through all
vibe.
She's
all
great.
the facial expressions.
Yeah.
So,
Anna.
parents have come, and I don't
Matt's
know.
obsessed with Rybakina's sister.
Well, I remember her reactions during the blink of a tiebreak.
Oh.
She had a look of horror on her face, and that was contrasted with the umpire, Greg Allensworth, who I'm also obsessed with. He was just laughing through the whole thing. And I remember thinking that was like the two tennis moods. It's either stress and horror, or the whole thing's just funny. It kind of depends on your personality.
Rybakina was asked about her health, and obviously she's going to say she's fine, but she also sounded convincing. She sounded like, I'm feeling better, and hopefully all that's behind me now. But just generally,
which she didn't in Paris, did she?
Yeah,
she was defensive about it, and
I didn't sense there was no. Look, we also had these slightly awkward conversations with her in the press conferences. She sat there and she did a good 6-minute interview with the BBC team, and she sounded like she wasn't in a rush to leave. And I know not interviews aren't for everybody, and they're not the telltale as to whether somebody's well or not. But I was reassured that she sounds happier and in a better place and healthier, hopefully, and ready to keep going.
I'm so pleased to hear that.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time worrying about Elena Rybakina.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. And I think I come down on the side of Rybakina as the favourite for that match, for this tournament. But Krejcikova has a way of making things awkward. I think she can keep the ball a lot lower than Svitolina did. She can get it out of the strike zone a little bit more. She's got a nice slice. She can hit quite flat. Based on what we saw today, she can defend really well against big power, like Ostapenko has, like Rybakina has. So I definitely think that kind of Krejcikova can sort of get her claws into that match and make it a contest in a way that no one other than Siegmund has managed to do against Rybakina. She made it awkward. I think Krejcikova is a far better player than Siegmund, but she can do a similar thing there. And then also, if it is Paolini that Rybakina were to face in the final, Paolini beat Rybakina at the French Open, that would be a match where Paolini would have confidence that she's just beaten that opponent. So it's by no means done for Rybakina here. Even though I think she's pretty big favourite now, especially hearing how much better health she seems to be in, I do think there are big threats, and I wouldn't discount Vekic either, who likes. I
was wondering when you were going to mention her.
Yeah, well, she
Sounds
likes
Matt.
she likes hitting contests, Vekic, and I think there'd be parts of that matchup which Vekic would enjoy, but
Well, what do we think about Vekic Paolini? Put Pam out of your mind, Matt, and do honest thoughts.
Paolini's the favourite, I think. I think she's played the better tennis this tournament. I think she's played the better tennis this year. I think she's, at the moment, a more well-rounded, confident, complete player. She's, you don't reach the final of the French Open and then back it up by reaching the semis of Wimbledon by accident and also winning a title in Dubai. She's legitimately shown that she has the level. And I think, her backhand's so consistent and her forehand is really dangerous, and I don't really have that much of a doubt about her showing up in that match. As I said yesterday, she's shown up in all these big matches. I think she'll bring that energy, that vibe. I think the one area where I like the matchup for Vekic would be the Paolini second serve. I think it's not a great serve. It's probably one of the weaker ones of the players left in the tournament. And Vekic has got a great flat second serve return, and that's, I think, going to be something that she has to really take advantage of. I think Paolini's the favourite, but I do like that element of the matchup for Vekic.
David?
Well, I think that's an excellent analysis, and I haven't got anything better to say other than that, really, other than I think Donna will win.
Do you really?
Yeah.
I want Donna to win just so that Hannah's efforts to make Wimbledon happen
are good.
Not in vain, because that deserves to be a thing, doesn't it?
Yep.
It's too perfect.
So that's our pod title, if it happens.
Wimbledon.
Yeah.
It's probably the worst thing that could have happened to Donna that I've picked her to win, isn't it? Given my Jasmine Paolini record.
Jasmine Paolini does like taking you to task.
Yes, I'm not going to stop.
I think it's just extraordinary that Jasmine Paolini is potentially about to reach back-to-back Grand Slam finals.
Unreal.
It's like we should not adjust to that new normal without a moment of reference.
Oh, if you were coming up with, let's say it's January and we're saying make a bold prediction for 2024, right, and someone had said Jasmine Paolini will reach back-to-back Grand Slam finals, the French Open at Wimbledon.
You'd say
you're just too bold.
I said bold, not ridiculous.
Right.
I mean, everybody would have laughed. I mean, mainly because obviously running joke that I said she was a good draw this time last year. Obviously, I've got egg on my face several times, fine. But tell me anybody who wouldn't find that funny at the start of the year as a concept.
It's unreal. She's unreal.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I love Jasmine Paolini and what she's done.
It's such a dream to watch and to follow. That I think she's an absolute inspiration.
Just quickly, David, on this match, there are so many Italian journalists here. I mean, there's always a decent core of Italian print media and I think broadcast media as well, but it has...
And now they've got Musetti as well.
Right. Like, again, they come for Sinner, they stay for Musetti and Paolini. And obviously, they're just having an incredible time, Italian journalists. I noticed that Donna Vekic didn't do any native language press in her press conference after winning yesterday. Are there no Croatian journalists here?
No, there are not sadly. And I've been in touch with a couple because I know the Croatian media really well from having attended my first ever ATP tournament when I worked for them in 1998 was in Split, Croatia, and I got to know all the Croatian journalists. Got on famously with them all, married a Croatian, so I've always kept in touch with the
Not
Croatian
one of the Croatian
media.
journalists.
No, although I did meet her in a press room in Umag in 2000.
I've got a cheer out of cameraman Matthew.
Yeah, it's a
He
great
just
story.
loves love.
Yeah, but
Just called David a hustler.
I can't exactly argue. But I mean, the fact is, all right, moving on. The fact is that I think it is a shame that the Croatian media aren't here, and yet I totally understand it. They're getting all the transcripts, they're getting the YouTube clips of the press conferences, they're watching the matches, they're covering it. It'll be a decent sized story over there. But the Euros football's going on, the Olympics is coming up, and it's expensive to come here. And I hope maybe one or two might be here tomorrow and over the weekend if she gets there. But it's not what it was when Goran reached the final here or when Maioli won the French Open.
Maioli, who's been in Donna's box this tournament.
There used to be
lovely.
a huge group of Croatian journalists. They're great journalists. There's some really good publications there, but it shows how much newspapers are struggling too.
Good analysis for a hustler. I'm going to be thinking
Term
about
of endearment, Matthew, isn't it?
Going to be thinking about that all evening.
We say all these things on mic, and Matthew off mic comes up with the best line.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Matthew. Okay, well, that's tomorrow. Vekic against Paolini and Rybakina against Krejcikova for the Wimbledon final. We will be back, folks, with a live show, with a podcast at the end of it all. We will have our mascot Maverick. Hello to Maverick for being with us through all of the rain and staying with us in time to finally see the sun again. Thank you, Maverick. Thank you to our mascots, the dearly departed Darwin, to Francis and to Haida and Soma, to Billie Jean, who is sponsored by Billie Jean King and Ilana Kloss. There is Billie Jean content on our Instagram, and I'm biased, but I think it's worth checking out.
So good.
We have our top folks and executive producers, Jamie, Jeff, Chris and Greg. Hello to you. And we have shout outs, Matt.
We have Amy Graham.
Hi, Amy.
Who is in Vancouver, Washington, on the border of Washington and Oregon Only 3 hours from Seattle and the Seahawks, David.
Oh,
And 3 hours in America isn't much.
It's only 3 hours. For us, that's like half the country away.
When Matt and I were like, oh, we're driving 4 hours from Manhattan to Foxborough to watch Bruce Springsteen, and everyone was like, yeah, sure, that seems normal.
That's in the area.
Yeah. Through 4 states or something. Tennis Amy's.
Amy Frazier.
That's who Amy has come up with.
Yeah, I'd like to say I wasn't
I
reading your
love
screen.
it when the shout-outs come up with...
I do remember Amy Frazier, but I wasn't about to say it until Amy helped us out.
Are there any tennis Grahams? Graham Kimpton, groundsman at Queen's.
Yeah, legend. Can't think of any others.
No. Okay. Do we know anything else about Amy?
She is a huge fan of watching and playing tennis. And in her free time, she's a search and rescue volunteer and enjoys having the podcast to keep her company on long drives up mountains.
Oh, love
Good
that.
for you, Amy.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Amy.
We've also got Carolyn Koo in New York.
Hello, Carolyn.
Hi, Carolyn.
And Carolyn would like to dedicate her shout out to her dad, David.
Oh,
It's-
great name.
She says it's been over a decade since he passed, but he passed on a lifelong love for tennis, and he was such a fan that when their TV stopped working ahead of the Battle of the Sexes, he ran out and bought a small black and white TV so that he could watch it. Unfortunately, he missed out on seeing Billie Jean King's mint green Ted Tinling creation in its full glory, but he did get to watch the match.
Oh,
Carolyn, that is absolutely lovely. And yeah, we dedicate this shout out to your dad, David.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And finally, we've got Bob Stocking. We know Bob.
hey,
Bob.
all right, Bob.
He is from Chapel Hill in North Carolina. We met him at Indian Wells.
We did.
He's great.
We did a private podcast.
We
with
did.
Bob,
Did.
didn't we?
Yeah.
which
Bob
was-
like Bob Bryan.
Yeah.
Mm.
Very good.
Any others?
Bob Brett.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Coach of Boris Becker and
Becker.
Marin Cilic.
Goran Ivanisevic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Carolyn. And Amy.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. If you'd like to become a friend of the Tennis Podcast, get yourself a shout out. The link to do that is in our show notes, and you get access to all sorts of other things as well. Lots of bonus episodes. We'll be doing a Wimbledon review show early next week with voice notes from various different contributors, our more considered reflections on the tournament as a whole, and it generally helps get listeners and friends through the post Grand Slam come down, we like to think anyway.
Including us.
Yeah, exactly, including us, genuinely. So you get that, and also access to the barge and all day with Hannah, which is a wonderful thing. So yeah, the link is in our show notes. Do subscribe to the newsletter. The King of the Naughties question tonight has not yet been administered, but I am excited.
Half-time.
Yeah,
Half-time entertainment.
it's halftime entertainment.
us.
Absolutely, you are the Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson of tonight's proceedings.
I'm pleased with that.
Okay. Finally, please do smash that like and subscribe button. And apologies to Dutch listeners. We love you. I love Dutch names. I spend a lot of time making sure I nail the Dutch pronunciations. But come on, England. Come on, Jude. We'll
Let's
see you
go.
tomorrow.